Loneliness isn't a lack of people, but a lack of connection. It's the feeling of being surrounded by voices, but none of them understanding your silence, of being in a room full of souls, yet still feeling invisible. The most painful kind of loneliness is the loneliness that comes when you can't seem to find a way out of your own thoughts. It feels like your mind is a maze with no exit, and you're stuck wandering in circles, searching for something that feels like peace. Loneliness teaches you that there's a difference between being alone and feeling alone. You can be by yourself, but not feel the ache of isolation. It's the difference between solitude and solitude that feels empty. In the quiet of my mind, I am haunted by the silence. It is not the absence of sound, but the absence of understanding that makes loneliness unbearable. When you are lonely, the days feel longer, the nights colder, and even the simplest tasks seem harder. But it's in these moments of solitude that you begin to discover who you are and what you truly need. Loneliness is not the absence of people. It's the absence of emotional connection, of being truly seen for who you are. It's the feeling of being a stranger even in your own life. The hardest part of loneliness is when you realize that no matter how many people are around you, no one seems to see you. You're just a face in the crowd, a name in the distance, yet never truly connected. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being by yourself, but from not being understood. It's the invisible weight that presses down on your chest when you feel unheard, unnoticed, and alone in a world full of people. Loneliness is like a dark cloud hovering over your thoughts, making it hard to see beyond the gray. Yet, somewhere deep inside, you know there's a sun waiting to break through the storm. The loneliest feeling isn't when you're alone. It's when you're surrounded by people, yet you feel more isolated than ever before. It's like living in a world of noise, but none of it is meaningful to you. When you are lonely, every minute seems like an hour, every hour like a day. You can hear your heart beating, but it feels like it's beating alone in the silence. Loneliness isn't always about being without others. Sometimes it's about feeling that no one understands your soul. It's the quiet ache that comes from not being seen for who you truly are. You can feel lonely in a room full of people if no one truly sees you. The world keeps spinning and you're left standing still, waiting for someone to notice the depth of your heart. Loneliness feels like an ocean, deep and vast, where every wave is an emotion you can't quite grasp, and every ripple is a thought you can't quite understand. The hardest part of being lonely is not the absence of others, but the absence of feeling understood. It's the gap between your heart and the world around you, where no one seems to know how to reach you. Loneliness has a way of stripping away the noise of the world and leaving you with only the echo of your own thoughts. It's in these moments of silence that you find the rawness of your own vulnerability. It's easy to feel invisible when you're surrounded by people who don't know the language of your heart. Loneliness is not about being alone, but about being in a crowd and still feeling unseen. Loneliness often isn't about the number of people around you, but about the lack of meaningful connection. It's the space where your heart longs for something more, but can't quite find it. The hardest kind of loneliness is the one that comes from within. It's when you're alone with your thoughts and feel like no one, not even yourself, understands the pain you're going through. Loneliness doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers in the quiet moments of the day. It's the emptiness you feel when your thoughts have no one to share them with. Sometimes you have to learn to embrace the loneliness because it's in these moments that you grow the most. You discover new parts of yourself and realize that you are enough, even when you're by yourself. The quiet loneliness that follows you everywhere you go is like a shadow that refuses to leave. It reminds you that the greatest journey is often the one within, where you learn to be at peace with your own company. Loneliness is the bitter companion that reminds you of all the places your heart longs to be and all the connections it wishes to have, but doesn't yet know how to find. In moments of loneliness, we often question our worth. But remember, just because you're alone doesn't mean you're not deserving of love, connection, and companionship. Loneliness isn't just about missing others, it's about missing yourself. It's about losing touch with the person you once were and not knowing how to reconnect with that version of yourself.